Hi, welcome to this session called Equipment for Life. I'm Lydia Masaibi, I'm editorial director at Kids Know Best. And today we've got a really exciting panel together to discuss how preschool shows can help children develop essential life skills. So young kids all across the world have the same fundamental needs that go beyond what we'd consider academic learning. So well-being, escapism, emotional and social skills are a really important part of their development. And it's never been more needed than in the last year of lockdowns. So today we're going to discuss how storytelling can give children the equipment they need to navigate life. And to start, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice Burden. I'm a children's media consultant. My background is in publishing, television and licensing and toy. So I specialise in bringing all of those exciting worlds together to build new IP that can engage children across all platforms.
Hi, my name's Jodie Morris. I'm Chief Content and Audiences Officer at Akamar Films, and we're the producers of the international preschool show Bing.
Hi, I'm Laura Henry Elaine, and I work as a consultant, trainer, writer. I work in children's media, TV, publishing and brands. And I also created the characters of Jojo and Gran Gran.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Amberley. I'm genre lead for preschool at BBC Children's in-house productions. Means I sort of oversee strategy for preschool for in-house, work across all the genre, and also exec quite a lot of shows as well for our preschool audience.
Lovely. So the first question I'd like to ask all of you is what you'd consider equipment for life and how you think that differs from traditional education content.
We think about it in the context of children, when young children have a real appetite for story, and that's how they learn. And so through our stories, we try to make sure that what they're learning are things like they're developing their emotional intelligence, their cognition, their values, their knowledge of the world, their sense of identity. So for us, that equipment is not ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's about helping them to develop as little prototype humans.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of social and emotional toolkit that absolutely complements a more traditional sort of educational and academic framework, but allows the child to relate more to those everyday first experiences and the world around them. And those skills are just as important as ABCs. And things like confidence, friendship, relationship building, managing those really challenging and unfamiliar and tricky emotions, empathy, and just learning where you fit into the world around you are all things that children's content can deliver.
What's going on, Love Monster?
Love Monster is so full of feelings that all of his words come out at once.
I found a box of chocolates. I was going to keep them for myself. Then I realised I want to share them with you, and I don't want a single one. Well, maybe one.
You know, as we know, hopefully coming out of this really difficult time of the pandemic, children just haven't had any exposure to quite a lot of those things. All they have are their friends on screen and on the page. So now more than ever, you know, there's a huge importance on getting that right and delivering it.
I think just picking up on what Alice said, friends on screen is really important because we know that they very much engage with the characters in our shows. Sometimes it's their peer group. You know, there can be lots of shows with contributors in, so it's their peer groups doing things, demonstrating things, and they go, oh gosh, if you know they can do that, I can do that as well. Equally, with all the characters that we develop, we make sure that there is, you know, they can relate to that character as well. And if they are relating to that character, when that character goes on an emotional journey throughout the storyline, hopefully that child will engage with it and learn something from it as well. But I think it's really important that they absolutely engage with the characters. If they're not, they won't then sort of get that emotional message back.
I think it's about connections and relationships, and how children are able to see themselves on screens. And I think especially regarding diversity, seeing more of themselves, intergenerational relationships, as we know within lockdown, family has been very important, and how we see quite clearly the voice of the child coming through and how children see themselves represented on screen, and the importance of children being able to learn through play. So rather than it being rote learning, like, you know, it's 11 o'clock, we've got to do ABC today, it's about the joy of learning. And I feel children being a part of that they can see themselves on screens, that they can actually come away and pick up what they've seen in this on screen in terms of their role playing, sharing with their peer group, with their family and with their friends, etc.
Well, we talk about essentially being reality for preschool children. Every 7-minute film focuses in on something that happens in the authentic everyday experience of a toddler. And so authenticity and relatability is really key, because we focus in on those stories. And the stories are developed through team writing, but also educational experts, speech and language therapists. There's a lot that goes into making sure that those stories are relatable and authentic. And then those stories play out, and the child goes on a journey with Bing or Sula, the characters that they consider their friends, and live that experience. So, you know, it may be that it's an episode about being scared of the dark. And so it focuses, we call them micro dramas. They really are on small moments, but it's just the emotional journey of being happy, something a bit scary or worrying happening. And then they recover, and then they find out that that's okay, and they can cope with that experience.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially within Jojo and Gran Gran, it shows the intergenerational relationships. And I think what's key in every single episode, and I think Vanessa probably agree with me, is around inspiring real world. And last year, you know, everybody was making banana bread. That was in one of the episodes. And, you know, visiting the library, going to the seaside, making a bird feeder, a puppet show, etc. And the feedback that, you know, myself and the wider team have had within BBs, it does inspire that real world play, and it shows the love within a family, within Jojo and her grandmother.
Nice. And Vanessa, from your point of view, obviously at the BBC and working on a lot of these programmes, how are you starting to consider how these kind of skills are being brought into the shows you're doing?
I'd say they've always been there. You know, it is essential. We know it's a responsibility as the producers of content for little ones. It is our responsibility that we make sure that we are enriching the child. We don't know what that child's background is, what their environment is. I mean, you know, they could be just sat there watching it on their own. This could be the first time they see something. This could be the first time they've experienced something. You don't know what their lives are. So we do find we do acknowledge it as a responsibility that the content is enriching. And yes, we have the content that does the ABCs. You know, we've got very, very popular shows that do that. But equally, I think it is, for that emotional development, is really important. So whatever we do, and you know, I look after a lot of Justin Fletcher's content, and you know, be it Mr. Tumble falling over or something, or in Justin's house, you know, we have all those slapstick moments with custard pies in the face and falling over. If you actually look at the narrative, within all that laughter and hilarity, the narratives do have an emotional through line. There is a moral to it. We'll try and stick to one as well, rather than be complex. I mean, I know sort of Jodie mentioned this as well with Bing, you know, there's the one sort of through line. Okay, so this story's narrative is going to be about this. Obviously, you have all particularly with anything with Justin in it, you have all the mayhem around it. But there will be that moral.
How do you see toy and play patterns experiencing and kind of going through these motions of learning about these life skills?
Yeah, I mean, it was really lovely, Laura, to hear you talking about play and kind of the joy of play. I mean, I think playing is awesome, and there are amazing things about it. And one of those things is that it's this it's the biggest shared international language that children will join together and take part in, regardless of whether they can communicate through language. It's a really positive and fun way for children to role play and experiment with social situations and experiences to help them gain confidence in that. And there's all sorts, you know, good content will always inspire imaginative play and creative play.
Wow, the marble will go all around the room.
Toys are such a huge part of any brands, and I think there's quite a lot of cynicism around toys because it's a large and legitimate part of any business model. You know, the consumer product line does play a big part, and it's easy to feel a bit to feel a bit cynical about what that is. But actually, done well, this is the way, as we were talking about earlier, these characters become your trusted friends as a child. They're your little Lonely Planet guides to figuring stuff out. And toys and books are a way of bringing those characters actually into your own home. There's our toolkit right there. Something like Pepper, or as Jodie was talking about, Bing, you know, this reality show for children that's dealing with those first experiences and real life experiences. The toys translate into that process. It's a way of them bringing it into the home and playing it out themselves.
We hear from our audience all the time through our social media, obviously, and that thing about them becoming your friends was really true in lockdown. We heard lots of parents saying that if you ask my child who their friend is at the moment, they'll say Bing and Flop and Sula, and it's replaced their friends. But we also, you just reminded me, Alice, about anecdotes of the children. We love it when we hear they're playing with our toys, but they're playing with our toys alongside their Paw Patrol toys. And they have the two characters in some sort of imaginary world where they meet. With lockdown, we realised we had an opportunity to try and support our global social community through the parents because they were all at home. So we had a staying at home together campaign that we ran across our key markets, and so we gave parents activity sheets and ideas of things to do with their children, which really went really well. And we saw our content consumption numbers across everything just skyrocket, especially in April 2020. So we know, across YouTube, across the iPlayer, all those touch points, children were turning to the familiarity of not just Bing, clearly that was across the board, but we could see that there was something really reassuring and comforting in them being able to go back to those stories and those characters and have that connection in lieu of real life connection.
It comes back down to, I think initially it was about activities we need to do, we're not at school. And I would say it was home learning more than homeschooling. And I think it's around that level of empathy and well-being and how we actually see that on screen for children. I think that's very, very important, and children being able to share their feelings and share their thoughts. A lot of children have gone through bereavements, whether or not it's a family member or a friend. So how they can see that I would say, to manage their feelings and vocalize their feelings, and how what they see on TV can give them the actual catalyst to have a voice and to say, well, actually, I'm experiencing that as well. And I think as adults, we need to see that children are more than capable, and even children within their early years are quite capable to discuss how they're feeling around a bereavement or a family member who's quite poorly. And I think sometimes we've shied away from the difficult subjects, and I think we have to, as adults within the industry, become uncomfortable to get comfortable, because some of these taboo subjects are there and children are living them from day to day. And I think it is super helpful if children are able to see what they're going through on the screen and be able to say, well, I'm not alone. So whether or not it's their teacher or educator or their parent or carer can actually use that particular episode within any show and to say, well, look, this is something similar that you're going through as well. So I think that is something that we need to look at in the future. I would say heartfelt shows.
It's an important factor, isn't it, to have those moments that initiate conversation between the parent, grandparent, carer and the child, because it just gives a nice kind of segue into those important discussions.
Exactly, that's the power of children's media, can have a massive impact positively on children's learning and development.
You talked a bit there about stories and storytelling and really encouraging like learning and education. Do you think that stories have a different power to kind of connect with children at that early age? And is there a particular reason why they might resonate more than something quite instructional?
For the little ones, whatever we do, there's a narrative to it, even if it's going back to colours, which you might think, oh gosh, where's the narrative here? But is it just a whole load of images of colour? But actually there is a story to each one. There was a format to it. And I think to reach little ones, they've got to know the reason for it. If you're making a factual show for little ones, or for anybody actually, there is a narrative in there. You've got to tell a story, otherwise it just becomes some random load of facts or random load of images. So I think, yes, we might make it a little bit more simple, but I think there will always be some form of story to whatever you're doing, whatever, and I know Laura's nodding. I imagine probably, even teachers in a lesson would have a sort of like a beginning, a middle and an end and a story that they want to get through to help educate their class. And similarly with little ones, that you try and make a beginning, a middle and end, whatever you're doing, I think.
It comes back to the title of this session. Stories are equipment for life. And even if you think back to cave dwellings, they would depict stories, if you like, to try and learn and to teach and communicate. And really that's it. And children want stories. That's what they crave. They want bedtime stories. They want stories on TV. They want stories they want narrative, because that helps them to learn. And so that's the opportunity. That's why stories, and especially in this age range, this preschool age, are so powerful.
And Alice, from your point of view and play, like, is there a particular reason why play can sort of bed these skills in for a child more so than educational content?
If we can't see now more than ever before that we have a huge responsibility with the presence that all of us have in children's lives, if this has been a huge lesson in that, and we can give children these characters, stories, shows, toys for them to play out in their own home, to work out the things that have been difficult for them, to experience a world that they either don't know or have completely, the walls of it have closed in so much, they've lost touch with it. And I think that goes not just for educational programming. I mean, there is a bit of a fine line between all of this, but for commercial shows, and in fact especially for commercial shows, because in terms of toy play, they have this huge global reach. They are on the toy shelves. So making sure that you are using that platform that you have been blessed with as the creator of a massively successful IP to deliver a useful, valuable, positive and joyful play experience. I can't see anything that's not exciting about that. I mean, that's hardly a chore.
One question I'd love to ask you all before we wrap up is to ask, what advice would you give content creators who are looking to kind of embed this in further and look into the future of what they're going to produce next?
I think we should challenge ourselves to do better. I think this is a great moment to look at the effect that children's content has had, to look at the reach that has and the platform that gives us as a message, and to not be afraid of finding new ways into those big important issues for preschoolers, from gender to race to disability, any kind of inclusivity, belonging, and all the way through to those friendship, social, kindness, and those themes as well. be bold. Think about how those elements of story are going to translate into relevant experiences to the child. And also, if it's an IP that has toy potential, think about those play patterns. You know, we've all talked about the return of traditional play patterns, and play patterns are traditional. You know, they don't change much. It's nurture, it's rescue, it's vehicles, it's you know, they're there. Look for the new way in. Look for the fresh twist on something that can bring a new contemporary message that fits with our current social environment. You don't have to be in the real world to teach real world social and emotional skills. You just need to have your relatable access point. Whether you're in an enchanted forest or you've got a family of talking pigs, everything has a point of relatability. And I think really thinking about that helps wrap it all up in a really satisfying creation, because it all authentically feeds through and links, and that will be the part that goes into the child's home and stays with them, hopefully.
Put the needs of the audience first. That's our kind of mantra, but also the authenticity and that relatable element is key, because if a child isn't able to relate, they won't be able to engage. And inclusion, which we've touched on a bit as well. We try to make sure that it has an ambiguity, and that some of its value is that everyone can relate to it, because whether you come from a family with one parent, two mums, a mum and a dad, or a grandparent, or whether you have a sibling, or you know, everyone can find a way in, and it's that, to be able to have that emotional connection that is what you need in order to drive that relationship, I think.
Yes, the humour, I think, has to be there, the comedy, the learning points, the extension activities, and as Alice said, in terms of the merchandise side of things from that commercial point of view. But I just think it's about making heartfelt, honest, and I know we've used this word 1,000 times thus far, about it being authentic and it's relatable, so children see themselves on screens, and also too for other children. I think when we're talking about equality and inclusion, it's about, you know, inspiring and informing children who may not see that level of diversity. So we have to reflect on, okay, then how is this going to have an impact on every single child within the UK and on a global level? And when I'm doing research, working with brands and in children's media and doing production stuff, that's what I look at in terms of, can children connect? And I always come back from this heartfelt approach as well within that.
I think from a sort of practical point of view, don't overcomplicate. Don't try and ram and cram everything into one storyline. You know, absolutely investigate a storyline, investigate what your emotional through line is, and don't be frightened to challenge it either. Particularly for little ones, you know, you can return back to something, you can push it a little bit further, you can question it, but don't try and overcomplicate it. Don't have, you know, over there we're talking you know, confidence, there we're talking a little bit of you know, community over here, we're talking resilience here. Don't try and cram it all in. You know, if you're going to try and have a through line for one about resilience, focus on that resilient moment, you know, and challenge it. But yes, all the others, it's character, warmth, humor, authenticity, you know, genuine voice. Absolutely, it's essential.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that's all we have time for. So I just want to say thank you so much to our panelists for sharing all their experience and their input. And I think it's very clear to say that there's a really exciting opportunity here to create something that's really valuable and creative for kids. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.